The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
The border is in great shape. 99.9% came out again today. 99.9. That, I would say, that was my number one thing.
100 days into President Trump's second term, the promise made, he says he's kept, and his plans for what's next. Plus, a suspect in the New Orleans New Year's Day attack now in custody, where authorities say the ISIS member was spotted overseas. And then Crumble Cookies sued. Their multi-million-dollar legal battle that has nothing to do with their desserts. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and today marks 100 days in President Donald Trump's second term in the White House. Since President FDR's first term in 1945, this milestone has been seen as a benchmark for what can be accomplished for the rest of the 4 years in office. We have team coverage. Atra Alnashar joining us in Michigan, covering the president's rally later tonight, and Matt Gelka covering what the next 100 days could look like. But we start with Kayla Gaskins with a breakdown of what President Trump has done with the economy in his first 3 months.
As President Donald Trump marks 100 days in office, the White House is touting the benefits of his economic policies as the American public grows skeptical.
President Trump is delivering on his promises to lower costs for American families and businesses. Prices across the board for everyday goods have seen decline since this president was inaugurated. From airfare to used motor vehicles to prescription drugs, prices are dropping.
Fresh polling from the Pew Research Center, though, shows Americans' faith in President Donald Trump's economic decision-making is at the lowest point of his political career.
Look at the actual data, and the actual data has been quite good. The job data is good. Americans keep spending. And as Caroline said, we have these incredible commitments to bring manufacturing back on shore with record investment.
New polling from Gallup shows a majority of Americans are skeptical about the benefits of tariffs. But the White House says these policies are what's best for the country.
The president finally said enough is enough and refused to allow America and our workers to be ripped off any longer on trade. President Trump implemented powerful tariffs to end the era of economic surrender and to rebalance America's trading agreements.
President Trump set to ease tariffs for automakers, rolling back some tariffs on foreign parts used to make cars in the U.S.
We just wanted to help them during this little transition, short term. And during this little, if they can't get parts, it has to do with a very small percentage. If they can't get parts, we didn't want to penalize them.
The White House addressing a report that Amazon will start showing a little number next to the price of each product, indicating how much the Trump tariffs are adding to the cost of each item.
This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. As Reuters recently wrote, Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. So this is another reason why Americans should buy American.
An Amazon spokesperson disputed the reporting, saying showing price impacts by tariffs was never a consideration. Scott Bessent was also on Capitol Hill Monday, where he reiterated there are 3 legs to President Trump's economic agenda: trade, deregulation, and taxes. Bessent set the deadline for Congress to implement Trump's tax policies as July 4th. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins reporting for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
President Trump says he spoke with Amazon founder Jeff Bezos about that report of the company's plans for tariff-related price displays.
Jeff Bezos was very nice. He was terrific. He solved the problem very quickly, and he did the right thing, and he's a good guy. He's a good guy. I've gotten to know him over the last couple of years, and he's done a fantastic job, so I appreciated what he did.
The Associated Press says Amazon had considered listing the tariff costs as part of its haul service, but the company says the move was never considered for its primary site. President Trump in Michigan this evening for a rally outside Detroit to mark his 100th day in office. National correspondent Atra Alnashar is there, and we can see the area blocked off behind you, Atra. You spoke with supporters about their thoughts on the past 100 days, what they still want to see from the president. What are they telling you?
Hey, Dee Dee, yes, we're here in a very windy Warren, Michigan. And look, 100 days is a critical benchmark in any presidency. But for President Trump, it is coming as polls are showing us that the general public is starting to sour on how the president is handling some key issues like the economy. But some supporters I was talking to earlier today tell me that for the most part, they do feel that they are getting what they voted for back in November. But in some instances, they do want to see the president go further. How would you describe the last 100 days? So much has happened.
Actually, I would say it's biblical. Things are happening. This is a president that's getting it done.
I love the fact that Elon Musk is fighting all the corruption.
I think if you look at what he's been able to do on the border, where he hasn't had any opposition, that's indicative of where we'd be somewhere else.
Is there anything you want to see President Trump focus more on?
Well, I'd say now that the immigration and the borders kind of, handled to an extent, I think we should shift our focus to the Ukraine-Russia war.
No taxes on tip, no taxes on overtime, no taxes on Social Security. I need Congress. Get in there and get the job done. This is what we voted for this administration to do. Get the job done. We're ready.
Now, this isn't technically a campaign rally, of course, but Michigan is a battleground state, and its Senate race, its House races are going to be top prizes in next year's midterm elections. And Michigan is where Trump held his final campaign rallies in the 2016, 2020, and 2024 elections. And his narrow win back in November was key to his presidential victory. Dee Dee?
Yeah, the significance of Michigan is really worth noting. We're going to check in with Atra a little later tonight. Live in Michigan, Atra Alnashar, thank you for your reporting. Now, as far as grading the president so far, if you look right here, according to a new NPR PBS News Marist poll, twice as many people overall give Trump a failing mark than an A for how he's handled the presidency so far. The vast majority of Democrats give him an F, and just over half of Republicans give Trump an A grade. Almost a third give him a B. About half of independents hand him a failing grade, and less than 20% give him an A or a B. Developing news now, an ISIS suspect now in custody in Iraq in connection with the deadly New Orleans truck attack in January. An Iraqi official said authorities there arrested the unnamed suspect after the United States requested help investigating. The suspect will be prosecuted under an anti-terrorism law. The FBI identified the primary attacker as an Army veteran who had pledged allegiance to ISIS. And Kentucky State Police are also investigating an officer-involved shooting at an Amazon facility that left one person dead this morning. They say Michael Simpson died at the hospital before having a standoff with the officers at a traffic light near that facility.
Like I said, when I got here, they were walking down to us with the guns drawn, and that's when he come out from behind a semi with a gun to his head. And he backed up all the way into this Amazon lot across the street. About 10-15 minutes when he got in that lot, we heard 4 shots ring out.
2 deputies were involved in the shooting, but neither were hurt. An investigation is underway. 3 construction workers fell to their death this morning in Port Arthur, Texas, east of Houston, when scaffolding at a construction site gave way. 2 other workers were hurt. Both have now been released from the hospital and are expected to fully recover. Thankfully, OSHA and the local sheriff's office are investigating the cause of the accident. The 4 students that we told you about were killed when a vehicle crashed into a building in Illinois yesterday, and we have learned their names. The Sangamon County coroner identified them as Ainsley Johnson, Riley Britton, Catherine Corley, and Alma Bunner Kemp, ranging in age from 7 to 18. Authorities identified the driver as 44-year-old Marianne Akers. She's not in custody. The cause is still under investigation. Police are asking for your help identifying a person of interest in a shooting at Illinois State University. We have learned one person, not a student, was hospitalized Sunday after a fight between 2 groups escalated. Officials said the person of interest left the scene. If you recognize the person in these photos, contact the Illinois State University Police Department. Some protesters have been arrested as roughly 55,000 workers demonstrated as they striked in Los Angeles County. It is unclear how many were taken into custody and what are the charges. The strike began last night, 7 p.m. Pacific time. SEIU says that the strike could impact as many as 10 million county residents. Some libraries and healthcare clinics could be affected. The strike is scheduled to end tomorrow at 6:59, but without a contract, more work stoppages are possible. And here's a live look at New Orleans, where nurses at the University Medical Center have given notice they will start a one-day strike beginning May 1st. The union says the hospital hasn't resolved concerns about workplace violence. This is the third strike the UMC Nurses Union has enacted since joining the union in December of 2023. 600 nurses are expected to picket on Thursday. As we look ahead, a bill to ban fluoride from public wastewater systems is being sent to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' desk. This legislation passed the State House today, 88 to 27. If signed into law, Florida will become the second state to do so after Utah banned the chemical earlier this year. Critics of the bill say it will disadvantage less wealthy Floridians who rely on public water for oral health. And New York Governor Kathy Hochul announced an agreement with the legislature to ban smartphones from public schools bell to bell, beginning in the new school year in August. If enacted, New York would join 8 other states with complete school phone bans. Some other states restrict phone use during class, but educators say these types of rules are difficult to enforce when students are allowed to have their devices in hallways and at lunch. Coming up, the latest forecast as severe storm cells pass over the country where 60-mile-an-hour winds could cause damage. Then, the help President Trump will need from Congress to deliver on his ambitious agenda for the next 100 days. Later, how young people in Michigan are getting around new laws aimed at stopping recreational use of nitrous oxide. We'll be right back in 90 seconds. Right now, up to 69 million Americans in the path of severe weather as several storm cells pass over the U.S. You can see here over central Oklahoma right there, as well as most of Kentucky into the western parts of West Virginia, as well as upstate New York. The system in the northeast bringing a 30% chance of severe wind with sustained winds of 35 to 60 miles per hour. The National Weather Service in Springfield, Missouri, look right here, surveying the damage after likely tornadoes and severe winds hit that region. You can see what appears to be a tornado moving through that area around Interstate 44. Meteorologists reported winds of up to 90 miles an hour at the airport there. Officials say the string of storms downed trees and power lines and damaged some structures. As the president marks his first 100 days in office, his next 100 will likely depend on Congress and if Republicans can deliver on an ambitious domestic agenda. The National News Desk, Matt Galka reports from Washington.
Members of Congress are back in Washington, D.C., and they're hoping to make progress on a budget bill packed with the president's priorities.
We have 7 committees marking up components of the big, beautiful bill this week. We have 4 others next week. That third week that we return, the Budget Committee will merge all that together into the one big, beautiful bill, and you will see the results.
The so-called big, beautiful bill is set to include items like tax cuts, energy policy, border security, and defense money. The House Speaker says his chamber will be ready to pass something by Memorial Day, and then it's up to the Senate. But the battle between now and then will be over spending cuts and whether or not a slim majority of Republicans in the House are ready to sign on to the plan if enough cuts are not there. Republicans say they're optimistic.
I think they're going to be all aboard. I think the Republicans are really with us. We have the big, beautiful deal. It's moving along, and I think we're going to have it taken care of. I think they'll all be there.
That doesn't mean everybody's happy yet. It doesn't mean that we're at the right spot. But it does mean that just like we proved people wrong when they said we couldn't get Mike Johnson elected, or we couldn't pass the House rules package, or we couldn't get the budget resolution passed, I feel the same sense of optimism now as I did leading up to each of those wins.
The next 100 days for the Trump administration and Congress is also set to feature less Elon Musk, but still plenty of Doge. That could mean Congress trying to codify some of the cuts into law.
We're not gutting Medicaid. We're going to reduce fraud, waste, and abuse, which every single American should be applauding.
Meanwhile, Democrats vow to ramp up resistance messaging to policies they oppose.
They want to end Medicaid as we know it. They're going to hurt children, hurt families, hurt seniors.
At least one portion of the agenda has a patriotic deadline. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said this week he'd like to see the tax cut part of the bill passed by July 4th. Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka.
The New York State Republican Party headquarters has been vandalized for the second time in 2 weeks. Swastikas and Nazi propaganda written and taped on the walls of the building. One note says, if this isn't what you stand for, prove it. State GOP Chairman Ed Cox says New York Congress members Chuck Schumer and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have been fueling a climate of hostility that encourages these actions. No arrests have been made. Mexico says it will give the U.S. more water, settling a long-running argument over water rights. A 1944 treaty requires our southern neighbor to deliver a certain amount to us each year. Due to extreme drought, Mexico is about 420 billion gallons short, but the nation agreed to immediately transfer some water reserves after Trump threatened more tariffs and sanctions if Mexico didn't address the debt. The war in the Middle East continues, with Hamas still holding 59 hostages in Gaza, and it was believed at least 24 are still alive. But today, it appeared that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's wife suggested that number is lower.
6 מחטופינו, 147 בחיים, יש עד 24 חיים, עד 24 חיים. אני אומר עד.
The prime minister is speaking Hebrew when he says up to 24 hostages are alive. Sarah Netanyahu says off mic fewer, and he replies, as you just saw, I say up to. Hostage negotiations are currently active in Cairo, but Israeli officials say reports of a significant breakthrough reported by Egyptian media last night are inaccurate. Hamas says they have agreed to a 5-year ceasefire and will release all hostages, but would not disarm. Israel has maintained that any agreement that keeps the terrorist organization Hamas in power, as this one does, is not acceptable. Warner Music Group is suing the cookie company Crumble, accusing it of using songs in social media ads without permission. That's according to Restaurant Business. The music group claims Crumble used over 150 sound recordings by Warner artists, including Taylor Swift and Beyonce, without consent. Warner is seeking nearly $24 million. Starbucks has a new system to make drinks faster, according to the Wall Street Journal. Starbucks says the new scheduling technology reduced the average time by 2 minutes when it was tested at several locations. The algorithm doesn't use artificial intelligence, but the company's CEO says it could get more complex. Starbucks plans to bring the technology to hundreds of other locations. New technology helped one family get back an important part of their lives. Medical reporter Liz Bonas shares how it helps soothe the sound of ringing in the ears.
Hey there, everybody. If you've got some ear ringing, this is Beth, her daughter, Dr. Emily McMahon, and her daughter, Carolina. 3 generations. And with Mother's Day just a few weeks away, Beth, the mother, recently got a great gift of reduced ringing in the ears.
It can be very disheartening, probably is the best way I can say it.
It interferes with so much, doesn't it?
It does, especially sleep.
When I sat down to talk with Dr. McMahon, who is also an audiologist, and her mom in our TV studio, they showed me how this FDA-approved device helps cancel out Beth's tinnitus or ear ringing.
So this is what's called the linear tinnitus device. It's a bimodal neuromodulation tool, so fancy for 2 pieces. So piece 1 is using these headphones. So this is the ear stimulation. And the second point of stimulation is using this tongue tip stimulator.
As this animation provided by Neuromod shows, this combination of stimulation alters the activity in the brain.
So we're delivering positive both sounds and stimulation to the brain and helping the brain learn a new response system.
As Beth showed us, she simply puts on the headphones, which provide one set of sounds, and then the tongue stimulator delivers low-level impulses while she hears the sounds.
So each person has their own individual prescriptive profile of what they listen and feel.
A study of 220 patients released by the journal Nature this week shows 9 out of 10 patients who used the linear for 12 weeks had reductions in tinnitus. It is generally used for 2 30-minute sessions a day, at least initially. Beth, seen here on a recent trip to Alaska, says she's not even aware of the ringing anymore.
It's there, but it's no longer there.
Coming out, the object a woman found in her dinner at a California restaurant that made her never want to eat there again. We're back in 90 seconds. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We're taking the pulse of America, and we start in New York with suspected hazing in a high school lacrosse team.
The West Hill men's lacrosse team didn't play in a scheduled game this weekend and rescheduled their game for Tuesday. The Onondaga County Sheriff's Office confirming they're investigating an incident involving members of the varsity team and some of their classmates. If the incident turns out to be hazing, expert Dr. Susan Lipkins says it wouldn't surprise her.
Hazing often starts in high school. There are times when it's starting in middle school, like 8th graders who are often pulled up into the high school teams.
At this point, the Sheriff's Office telling me they're still doing their investigation.
Nitrous oxide canisters, like these, sold for culinary use. Legally, the gas is used to make whipped cream, but people are also using these to get high. In June of 2024, Michigan tried to address this concern, officially banning recreational use of nitrous oxide and the paraphernalia used to inhale it. But now, less than a year later, Michigan Poison and Drug Information Center says the way young people are getting their hands on this high is only evolving. Old school whippets to larger tanks, marketed in fun colors and flavors, now sold ready to use. Of course, with the disclaimer that it's not to be inhaled. However, health experts say it is.
Lily Halsworth and Anthony Mua were enjoying their date night at Mitsuie Buffet in Clovis last week. Halfway through their meal, an insect sighting ended their dinner.
My girlfriend Lily, she got a plate of their seafood boil that they got there, and I was gonna go get some too until I saw something moving about, and I looked closely. I'm like, oh, that's a cockroach.
Back in December, Fresno County Health made 2 visits to Mitsuie Buffet. An inspector uncovered a long list of violations: food improperly stored, rodent droppings on the floor, grime and waste had accumulated on shelves, floors, and walls, plus employees were smoking in the storage area.
Coming up next, how robots are being used in one state to make sure what's meant to get recycled actually does. We'll be right back. A Seattle recycling plant is using robots with artificial intelligence to cut down on pollution. About 300 tons of recycled materials are brought into Recology recycling plant each weekday. These robots use cameras to sort through 45 items a minute and drop them into the correct recycling bins to reduce what ends up in a landfill.
AI uses a lot of water and energy, though.
So when you say AI, we think a lot about ChatGPT and LLMs. Those are not the type of AI we use behind me in the machine. The stuff we have behind me can actually run on like a phone like the one in your pocket. It's designed to be very efficient because we know the impact of AI is really want to make sure that our products don't have a negative effect on our society.
Of a real-world application there. The robots operate alongside 35 employees. Recology says nobody has lost their jobs with the new technology. That's going to do it for us for this edition of the National News Desk. We invite you to join us again this evening with a reaction to President Trump's rally in Detroit, Michigan. I'm Dee Gatton. See you at 10.